Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Lest We Forget podcast, a historical podcast by Tenement Yarn Media. I am Davy. I am the writer of the Lest We Forget podcast. I am also the co-producer alongside Gabby, who is the host of this episode. You're gonna hear in a few. But this episode is a very special episode in its research and writing. So I just want to explain that before the episode start. So this episode came about in 2021. It was around the same time that Barbados was becoming a republic, and Dr. Ralph Cunnington, in his capacity as Prime Minister of St.Vincent and the Grenadines, so he wrote a letter to Mia Mottley. It's an open letter to Mia Mottley, the Bajan Prime Minister, basically congratulating her and leading Barbados to this feat. And it was a very daring letter, very daring letter. But what I find interesting in the letter is when Dr. Ralph said something to the point of, it was a full circle moment for him to witness, given that he was born in Barbados. And that's me and my chat now. Come here, so what you mean I did bad? What you mean? What you mean I did bad in Barbados? What you mean? Because given Ralph history with bad people, like I said, wait, what's happening? What's going on? What's going on here? And I set out to find out. I wanted the full story. The two line when him give never did go satisfy my appetite. Like it wet it. It put me upon the radar, it put the information upon the radar, but I'm gonna need the full story now. You see? I can't find nothing. Couldn't find nothing. I got me search and I couldn't find nothing. Which is not abnormal. You see me I try to say? Largely because the Caribbean is largely seen as an afterthought. Like 9 out of 10 times, you have to be fighting. It's West Indians have to reminding the rest of the world that we exist. But within that fighting, for a space in Caribbean history, in global conversations, it's usually the bigger countries that dominate the conversations, especially their history. So Jamaica, Cuba, DR, Haiti, you're gonna have a lot of materials around them. You see? Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Barbados. You see me? I'm trying to say that's the next tier. You see? Grenada, a lot of stuff Grenada. Around the revolution. Not necessarily Grenada, no. That stuff around Grenada and revolution. You see me? I'm trying to say? So you're gonna have like those. You're gonna have those. You see me? I'm trying to say? But the other countries, you see me? I'm trying to say? The other countries, you see? You're not going to see them given a comprehensive research scope around, especially their political history, like their peers. So it wasn't abnormal in the beginning. But then the more me I dig, it's like, me not find nothing. Me not find nothing. Let me I said, no, this serious no. And what I came across was a book that, Dr. Ralph wrote in 2010. It was an autobiography. And me I say, well, me know him right about this. Me know him right about the band of this. So I said, don't forget the book. People, the book costs $150. Let me say, what we are do? What we are do? What you mean $150? Like, no, babes, no. So me I say no. And around the same time, I was writing a series of episodes around St. Vincent. I was working on the Union Island Uprising, which is coming out later this year. And I was writing about the Roadblock Revolution, which that's the event that really, sent, Dr. Ralph to Prime Minister. Like that was the event that really secured ULP victory. And it's like, me I say, alright then, if I get the book, I can kill three brain with one book. I saw me meditating about the book, I now reach the 150. I'm gonna find it. So because I could have other materials, because I was already working with other materials around the Union Island Uprising and around the Roadblock Revolution, I just put the Ralph specific episode on the back burner. But then last year, a situation arose where I got access to the book. And because it was a borrowed copy and I only had it for a very small amount of time, like very small amount, very limited time. I only could read the first 100 and so plus pages. The book it's not a big book. It's like 250 pages thereabout. 220, 250 thereabout, I think. I only could read like the first half. And given the limited amount of time I have, I was reading while I was writing the episode, right? So, given that, and that was the only place that I could find the information around Ralph's born in Barbados, and when I listen to the episode, they're going to realize it wasn't just Barbados that had a problem with him. given that, I just want to make it clear that was the only place I could find the information, which is not advised when doing anything historical that or anything research based that you're using one source. But as I explained to you, it was, you need to understand how the Caribbean in global history set up and how countries in the Eastern Bloc within Caribbean history set up, that I only could like that was like the only place I could go and find the information. And again, I only read the first 100 pages of the book. I would advise that if you can afford it, the book, the $150, it might be cheaper now, I don't know. Having checked in a while, give up on it and buying that, not buying it. Sorry. Mm-mm. So yeah, and if you can buy the full book, I'm a several from only read the first 100 pages. Again, limited amount of time I have it. But if you can afford the book, I would say go and get the book and read the book and stuff. Again, the first half is really his rise to the role as prime minister, and the second half is everything that his administration have done or faced between 2001 to 2010, because the book was published in 2010. So that's basically the thing. I would say go and read it, go and buy it if you can afford it and stuff like that. So yeah, again, this episode is really just a shortened version of the first half of the book, and you're gonna hear a lot of snippets on the book and stuff like that. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So yeah, Vince's. I hope I did it justice. This is our first episode about St. Vincent. The Union Island and the Roadblock Revolution episodes are coming out later this year. I know one is coming out this year, one is coming out probably early next year. But yeah, that's it. So yeah, hope everybody enjoyed the episode still. But all right, later.
Welcome to another episode of Lest We Forget, a historical podcast by Tenement Yard Media. I'm Gabrielle, your host for this episode. To view the sources used and or recommendation to learn more about the topic, visit our website at tenementyardmedia.com. Let's get into it. Today, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves is one of the longest-serving heads of government in Caribbean history. As of this episode's recording, he is the current Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a post he has held since 2001. Beloved throughout the Caribbean region, he is affectionately called Uncle Ralph and Comrade Ralph. But back in the 1970s, this affection was non-existent, as he was persona non grata throughout the Eastern Caribbean. Ralph Gonsalves was born on August 8, 1946 to Alban Gonsalves and Teresa Francis. According to Gonsalves, his ancestral roots are traced to Portuguese indentured servants, Madeirans specifically, who came to St. Vincent from 1845 to 1851. Although neither of his parents attended secondary school, they both worked a number of jobs to support him and his 9 other siblings. At a young age, Ralph's uncle Peter Gonsalves was murdered. Peter, interestingly enough, was an activist in Bayeira during the 1935 St. Vincent uprising. Despite the loss at the young age, Ralph had a fairly uneventful upbringing. In 1950, he started Colonial Roman Catholic Primary School, where he was considered a very good student. By 1958, he was the only boy from the school who was selected to sit the grammar school examinations. Ralph was successful in these exams, one of only 30 students to do so, and in January 1959, he started the prestigious grammar school. Throughout his secondary school journey, Ralph would challenge the conservative colonial atmosphere. In 1965, during his time in upper sixth form, he proposed a discussion for the fifth and sixth formers on the life of Malcolm X. That was quickly dismissed by the school's headmaster. Then, when he proposed that the school start a steel band, that was also rejected. After successfully sitting his Cambridge School Certificate and GCE A-levels examinations, he spent a year in Guyana teaching at Bishop's College. It was while as a teacher that Gonsalves was first introduced to Marxist philosophy. He also started writing a column in the newspaper The St. Vincentian, written under the pseudonym Socrates. The articles offered, quote, glimpses of a progressive developmental program, end quote. At the end of his 1 year tenure, Gonsalves was off to further his education. This time, his ambition took him to Jamaica in September 1966, where he enrolled as an undergraduate student at the University of the West Indies, UWI or UWI, Mona campus. During his first year at UWI, Ralph submerged himself on campus while being an economics major. He was a member of the Taylor Hall cricket team and played in the Steel Band alongside Patrick Manning, who would later become Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. He was also a champion debater, where by year's end he received the top debating accolade, the Full Color Award. By his second year in 1968, he represented UWI in a two-member debate competition at the American Debating Championships. Ralph and his teammate emerged the winners in the final round against the University of Pittsburgh. 1968 was also the year UWI started an African history course, the first time any African history course was taught in the Caribbean region. To teach it, UWI recruited a then 25-year-old Guyanese academic, Dr. Walter Rodney. Seeing as the semester had already started by the time he arrived in Jamaica, Rodney served tutor duties where he was Ralph's tutor in Caribbean history. By October 1968, when the government of Jamaica banned Dr. Rodney from re-entering Jamaica, it was Ralph in his capacity as the newly minted guild president who led the protest over the government's decision. To learn more details about this event, check out our Lest We Forget episode, The Walter Rodney Protest of 1968. It was this event that became one of the first censorship attempts of Ralph. In the aftermath of the Rodney protest, there were numerous calls in the Jamaican media from supporters of the ruling party, the Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, for Ralph to be deported. By November 1968, the Vice Chancellor, Sir Philip Sherlock, informed Ralph that the Ministry of Home Affairs had advised that he be deported. Still, Sir Sherlock would put in the necessary arrangements, even financial, for Ralph to be transferred to the St. Augustine UWI campus in Trinidad and Tobago. However, that was not to pass as one of his friends would come to his aid. This friend was Bruce Golding, who ended up becoming the future Prime Minister of Jamaica. In his book, The Making of the Comrade, The Political Journey of Ralph Gonsalves, Ralph recalled what happened. I left the Vice Chancellor's office with apprehensions of my academic future and went to my classes at the Faculty of Social Sciences. There I met my friend Bruce Golding and informed him of my predicament. Bruce's father was a member of the ruling political elite, an elected member of Parliament and Speaker of the House of Representatives. Bruce, too, was one of the young Turks in the JLP who Edward Seaga, then Minister of Finance, and the second most powerful person in the government, was grooming for active politics. Bruce immediately contacted Seaga. A dinner was organized at Seaga's Vale Royal residence the next evening with Bruce, another Jamaican student close to the JLP, Seaga, and myself. During the dinner, Seaga called Prime Minister Hugh Shearer, who spoke warmly to me on the phone. The result of all of this was that I remained in Jamaica. Shearer had revoked my deportation order. And so, Ralph was able to continue his final year at UWI Mona. And despite JLP-affiliated students on campus calling for his removal as guild president, he still kept his position. A month later, he became the first Vincentian to be named Student of the Year. Soon after, he earned his bachelor's in economics with a focus in government, where he was awarded a scholarship to further his education. In September 1969, he took up the offer and continued his tertiary education as a master's student at UWI Mona. Soon after, he would complete his master's in government with a titled thesis, The Role of Labour in the Political Process of St. Vincent, 1935 to 1970, where the study was co-supervised by the newly employed lecturer, Dr. Trevor Monroe. Said thesis was then examined by Professor Dennis Austin of the University of Manchester, who influenced Ralph so much that after finishing UA in 1971, he journeyed to the University of Manchester to complete his doctorate. Now a doctoral student in the UK, Ralph's initial research was on the labour movement in Ghana, particularly during the years of Kwame Nkrumah from his rise to his fall from the presidency. However, he soon learned that there were some difficulties in getting him to the University of Accra, so the school suggested he did similar research in Uganda. It is this reason why he journeyed to Makerere University, where from May 1972 to February 1973 he lived in Uganda to work on his field research for his dissertation. This was the early years of the Idi Amin dictatorship in the country, and it was while in the country Ralph had another run in with authorities in a foreign country. Of all these incidents that happened in Uganda, there were four, one stood out, as he stated in his autobiography. A third time was in the middle of the day in downtown Kampala. Three armed soldiers confronted me and wanted to know why I was wearing a beard and my hair had grown so long that it covered my ears partially. They inquired whether or not I had heard the president's pronouncement the day earlier from his home base in the West Nile, Mahdi region, in which he had spoken of his intention to ban beards and long hair, except for religious reasons, and short skirts worn by women. I answered in the negative. Fortuitously, a friendly senior policeman appears and asked for my identification. I had two identification cards. One issued to me by the Embassy of Guyana. St. Vincent and the Grenadines was not independent, and I had hitherto refused the British protection in Uganda, and another by the President's office, which was a treasured document. I was an approved researcher. The senior policeman chased the young soldiers away. Before leaving, they asked where I was from. I said, the West Indies. One of them queried, the West of India? I was worried because East Indians were being targeted by soldiers. I said, no, Jamaica. They uttered approvingly, oh, Michael Manley, Bob Marley. I was saved. Despite these encounters, Ralph was able to complete his fieldwork and return to the UK to begin writing his graduate paper and even began legal training. But another incident found him in the crosshairs of British authorities, as he detailed. A police car with two police officers was patrolling. They stopped and questioned me. I told them the simple facts of my being and whereabouts. They listened. One held me and ordered me into the car. Presumably, my foreign accent and appearance aroused in their minds some prejudiced suspicion. I did not resist. At the police station to which I was taken, I was searched. My bag was searched. They saw my student identification card. They were satisfied that I was telling the truth. They became apologetic. They offered coffee. It was cold, so I accepted their offer. I, however, rejected their kind gesture to take me home. I was apprehensive. I was not going to take any chances with these policemen. I came out on the streets, caught a cab, and went home. Henceforth, I was wary of the British police. By June 1974, Ralph successfully completed his 650-page dissertation, The Political Economy of Trade Unionism and Industrial Relations in Uganda, 1950 to 1970. He returned home to St. Vincent in August of that year, but by late September was in Jamaica, where he took up a post as an assistant lecturer in the Department of Government at UEMONA. Over the next 2 years, Dr. Gonsalves taught 3 courses: Introduction to Politics, Government and Politics of the West Indies, and Comparative Politics. He was also in charge of the weekly faculty graduate seminars and was the editor of the journal The Social Scientist. He did several studies at this time, including one in collaboration with famed West Indian political scientist Carl Stone on the Bernard Lodge situation in Jamaica. He also found time to write a number of academic articles, one of which includes an academic review of then Jamaican Prime Minister Michael Manley's book, A Voice at the Workplace. He was also involved in the Workers' Liberation League, WLL, the University and Allied Workers Union, UAWU, the West Indies Group of University Teachers, WIGUT, and the fractions of the People's National Party, PNP. In 1976, university authorities approached Dr. Gonsalves to join the UWI Cave Hill staff. UWI Cave Hill is in Barbados. While there, he would be expected to teach the newly created course Modern Political Analysis. And with a desire to be closer to home, Dr. Gonsalves took up the offer, thus becoming the first ever appointed lecturer to teach the course at any UWI campus. By September, Barbados held an election, and with the Barbados Labour Party being voted in, Conservative Tom Adams became the nation's Prime Minister. And it's in this political atmosphere that we find Dr. Gonsalves as a lecturer at UWI Cave Hill, and subsequently where our story begins. Alongside modern political analysis, Dr. Gonsalves also taught an introductory course in politics and a business program, personnel management and industrial relations. He also assisted in the course, The Sociology of Development. As time went by, Gonsalves did a series of public political education in Barbados and across the Eastern Caribbean free of charge. He did regular forums at the Labour College of the Barbados Workers' Union, secondary schools, and numerous youth organizations. He also tutored a non-curriculum course at UWI on socialism and social democracy. And in the wake of the formation of the Marxist group, Movement for National Liberation, Ralph participated in the organization's study programs. His role as a political and social commentator required him to be a guest on multiple radio programs, where he even had a weekly column in the Bajan newspaper, The Nation. By the end of 1976, he published the monograph, The Spectre of Imperialism, The Case of the Caribbean, which became quite popular in society. In December 1976, the Cuban embassy in Barbados invited Gonsalves to visit Cuba, and it's these activities that quickly got the attention of conservative governments across the Eastern Caribbean. Soon after, the censorship began. From 1976 to 1979, Gonsalves was an unwelcome guest across the Eastern Caribbean. As he detailed in the making of the Comrade, the political journey of Ralph Gonsalves. Over the years 1976 to 1979, I had encountered immigration difficulties in several Caribbean countries. In 1977, I was denied entry to Grenada by the Gary regime. In 1978, the John Compton government sent me a letter advising that I would not be permitted to enter St. Lucia to deliver a lecture on the struggle against fascism and its implication for the Caribbean, sponsored by the Workers' Revolutionary Movement of St. Lucia. And in 1979, shortly after the Grenada Revolution, the Vere Cornwall Bird administration denied me entry to Antigua, where I was scheduled to deliver a lecture on imperialism in the Caribbean under the auspices of the University of the West Indies and the Antigua Caribbean Liberation Movement of Leonard Tim Hector, now deceased. In Antigua, I was detained in an enclosed holding area, allowed neither food nor water, and not permitted to use the bathroom. I was detained for several hours until a BWIA flight came in from London to take me back to Barbados. And specific to Barbados, the Adams administration took it a step further. According to Gonsalves, the imperialists, their friends and defenders, were not pleased with the focus of my work. The new government of Barbados, led by Tom Adams, was quick to put me in its sights. I was pilloried at first by right-wing journalists and letter writers to the press. Then Adams himself attacked me on the floor of the House of Assembly and at his party's gathering. I knew, too, that I was set upon by amateur spooks from the government's intelligence services. Within a year of my arrival in Barbados, the American embassy in Bridgetown placed me on a political watch list. I was only able to obtain single entry to the USA specific to each visit, and permission for the issuance of such a single entry visa had to be granted by a special agency in the US government. Hitherto, I was granted an indefinite visitor's visa. The paranoia of the imperialists was ridiculous and laughable. In the aftermath of the Grenada Revolution of 1979, Tom Adams emerged as one of the new government's staunchest opponents. In fact, the historians Catherine Sunshine and Philip Wheaton, in their book Grenada the Peaceful Revolution, stated that Adams tried to stop Britain, France, and Canada from recognizing PRG. They also stated that he attempted to block Grenada's application for membership in the Socialist International. On the flip side, Dr. Gonsalves was a loud supporter of the revolution. He himself said that he swiftly drummed up support for the revolution through speeches, writings in newspapers, and appearances on radio. And it's with these contrasting political views and Gonsalves' previous activities that the Barbados government deemed him dangerous, and what led to Adams delivering the final blow, making Gonsalves persona non grata in Barbados in December 1979. As Dr. Gonsalves recalled, the Adams government revoked my work permit as university lecturer in Barbados on the ridiculous ground that I was, quote, a security risk and an agent of Cuban communism. A patent falsehood. The simple truth was that Adams felt it politically and personally convenient in all the circumstances to prevent my return to Barbados. I had become a disciplined critic of his government. No doubt, the backward elements in the American embassy in Bridgetown were applauding on the sidelines. I had a wife and a son to care for, but I was denied, on species political grounds, an opportunity to earn a living in my chosen profession at our premier tertiary education institution. Adams had difficulty with his cabinet on the matter. He had evidently acted unilaterally, but his cabinet was embarrassed to rubber slam this folly. As the Nation newspaper of Barbados reported, it took 4 cabinet meetings to secure agreement on a statement on the issue. The Nation protested Adams' action. So too did the students and the faculty across the University of the West Indies. Unwittingly, Adams had made me a regional celebrity and a veritable poster boy for anti-imperialism and socialism. The ban on Gonsalves changed the trajectory of his life. In February 1980, he took up a 6-month visiting professorship at Queen's College, City University of New York, where he taught 3 courses: the political economy of the Caribbean, the political economy of sub-Saharan Africa, and Black/African civilization in the diaspora. Then in September, he journeyed to London to complete his legal studies at Gray's Inn. After passing the UK bar in July 1981, he returned home to St. Vincent in September, where he was called to the bar and began a 20-year career as an attorney. The height of this new career would come in 1996, when he was one of the attorneys who represented James and Penny Fletcher in the globally covered case where charges were brought against them in the murder of a water taxi driver. During this time as an attorney, Gonsalves would follow the tradition of other West Indian leaders such as Dr. Eric Williams, who made the shift from academia to formal politics. Beginning in 1981, he held leadership roles in the United People's Movement, UPM, and then the Movement for National Unity, MNU. In 1994, MNU and the St. Vincent Labour Party would run as an alliance in the general election. But a few months later, on October 16, ironically the anniversary of the Rodney protest, the two political parties merged to form the Unity Labour Party ULP. In the next general election in 1998, ULP lost, after which Dr. Gonsalves was elected as the party's leader, although he allowed Vincent Beach to be the leader of opposition. This, Gonsalves said, so that he could concentrate on his work as political leader. However, in 2000, the roadblock revolution took place in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This we'll explore in another episode, but in summary, the event saw public servants create human chains and block the streets to protest a proposed bill which would increase the salary and benefits for parliamentarians. Out of this event, the ruling NDP, New Democratic Party, became very unpopular, and when an early election was called in March 2001, it paved the way for ULP's first victory in a general election. Thus, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves was sworn in as the next Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. At the time of this recording, he has been in this position ever since, where he has led Unity to victory in 5 consecutive elections. Over the years, it seems the ban on Dr. Gonsalves has been overturned. He has traveled to Barbados numerous times for diplomatic matters and for his health. Still, he has stated that despite the initial ban, it has always been love on his end. In his November 2022-2021 open letter to Prime Minister Mia Mottley, congratulating her on leading Barbados to full republican status, Gonsalves wrote, "In 1979, the then Prime Minister of Barbados, Tom Adams, revoked my work permit and banned me from returning to work in Barbados on the entirely false ground that I was a security risk and an agent of Cuban and Soviet communism. You now lead the same Barbados Labour Party BLP. After one time is another. I do not feel and have never felt any rancor whatsoever towards Tom, and as you know, I hold the BLP in the highest regard, especially under the outstanding leadership of Owen Arthur and you." However, it's not just Barbados, but the rest of the Eastern Bloc and the wider Caribbean that would be on the receiving end of Uncle Ralph's praise in recent years. And no incident will demonstrate this more than in April 2021. St. Vincent and the Grenadines experienced the La Soufriere volcanic eruption, which saw the regional community swiftly offering help. In the middle of the ordeal, Comrade Ralph, in a heartfelt, teary-eyed press conference, said the following.
I've spoken to one of the cruise line's leadership this morning, and I must tell you, the way in which people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and in ordinary people and in Grenada and in Dominica, St. Lucia and Antigua have responded to put people in their homes, strangers, bring tears to my eyes. I love this Caribbean.
And with that, we call an end to this episode. To view sources and or recommendations to learn more, visit our website at tenementyardmedia.com. A transcript of the episode will be available 5 days after it has been posted to podcast outlets. Follow our social media pages at tenementyard_ on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and now Blue Sky to view additional posts on this and other topics, as well as other content created by The Yard. A quick note before I go, we're on Patreon, patreon.com/tenementyardmedia. You can support the show with a monthly donation of your choice at tenementyardmedia.com. Until next time, I'm Gabrielle, and this has been Lest We Forget, a historical podcast by Tenement Yard Media. Walk good.